everyone to Smarter in September. It was so much fun last year, we decided to do it again. This is our very first segment, Smarter Sleep Strategies. And we have the incomparable Sam Dolezal today. Sam is with UBT. She's our wellness advocate. And congratulations are in order to Sam. She has finished her doctoral degree in wellness education. When I was doing Sam's bio, I didn't realize that she had finished. So she's well qualified to talk about the importance of wellness. Right now, she's going to talk about the wellness or the importance of sleep. So let's give Sam a great big journey hello and settle in and hear what she has to say.
Perfect. Well, thank you for the wonderful introduction, Kelly, per usual. As Kelly mentioned, my name is Sam. I'm the Wellbeing Advocate at Union Bank. And to just give you an idea of what that means is I actually do employee wellness for our associates here. So I help them live their healthiest and best lives. And what we're actually going to talk about today is something that we do at the bank as well. And that's how do we get the quality, restful sleep that we all need? And for some of us, that's harder to come by. But before we actually dive into that, I do want to just let you know exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And that's kind of 4 different areas. The first one is exactly what is sleep? We do it, but what is it? And then what makes it so critical for us? Secondly, what actually affects it as far as both quality and then quantity of your sleep? How can you improve your sleep habits? And then how do you know if you're actually getting enough restful sleep? What are some signs that you can look for? Now, everyone is really different. And so I want to make sure that we're on the same page as far as what we're going to talk about today is really just suggestions, things to try, general education knowledge. I know that there are lots of things that impact sleep. And so keeping in mind that you can try XYZ, but really if I'm really struggling to sleep, seeing a medical professional is the route to go. Just want to let you all know that again, this is for anyone and everyone, but we're also unique that we also have to take that into consideration. All right, let's go ahead and get started now. And instead of actually talking about sleep, we're going to talk about your phone. Now, maybe you don't feel this way about your phone, but if you have grandkids or kids or even just friends who, when their phone starts to die, maybe they start to get worried or looking for a charger or, do everything so it conserves as much battery as possible. Now, what happens when your phone battery gets below 10%? Maybe start to kind of get worried. I'm not going to be able to call if something goes wrong. And what do? Most of us, maybe we shut it off, but a lot of us are going to start looking for that charger so we can charge it. We want it to work. We want it to function properly. We want it to be charged. If you have low battery mode on your phone, it'll tell you, hey, you can choose this option, but some of the things are going to get shut off. Some things aren't just going to work as well because it's trying to conserve battery. That's what it's meant to do. And that's essentially what we do is when we don't charge our own batteries, some things tend to just not work as well. I really like this picture of this little girl because I know I have felt this way before when I don't get enough sleep. And as much as maybe we like to say sleep isn't as necessary as they tell us it really is super necessary. And getting enough restful sleep is critical to our health, which is what we're going to talk about next. But I want to start with, we have all, for one reason or another, not charged our own batteries. And that could be due to, hey, you had grandkids sleeping and they just don't sleep through the night. Many of you could probably raise your hands to that one. Or you've had kids and they don't sleep through the night. Or you have a dog that barks when somebody walks by. I mean, even if you've traveled before and you haven't slept in your own bed, you notice you just didn't get as good as sleep. But there's things that we have to do or want to do the next day that make us say, okay, one night without enough sleep will be fine. But sometimes that one night turns into 2 nights. 2 turns into 3. 3 turns into a week. A week turns into a month. And before we know it, we've been skimping on sleep for way too long. Now, we're really going to talk about then, how do you know, maybe if you're not quite getting enough sleep? And this is just a little quiz. And so think about these 3 statements. and say, okay, is this true about me or is this false about me? The first one is I prioritize sleep over watching TV, scrolling on my phone, or other distractions that could take place at another time. Anything that you could do the next day, the next week. I know for me personally, when I get into a really good book and I just really want to finish the book, sometimes it ends up going till 3 o'clock in the morning because I had to finish the book, but I could have waited. I could have shut it, said, I'm going to finish the book tomorrow, gotten my sleep. But in that moment of time, I really wanted to know the ending. Again, anything that could be put off. If you prioritize your sleep over those things, is that true or false about you? Second one is I feel refreshed and ready to take on the next day most of the time. Again, there will always be those days and times where we just don't get enough sleep or we just don't get enough quality sleep. And maybe you go to someone's house, you're really tired and you slept, but you just didn't sleep well. Or again, you're watching those grandkids for the weekend and you got no sleep. They were awake every night and then napped during the day. Or again, your dog barked one morning and you just weren't able to fall back asleep. Lots of things. But again, you feel refreshed and ready most of the time. Is this true or false about you? Finally, I know how much sleep I need to function well. I put function well underlined because most of us know how much sleep we need to function. Kind of like the low battery mode on your phone, it starts shutting off things. It's still working, but it's not functioning well. It's just functioning. It's doing what's critical. And so I know how much sleep I need to function well. That's different from just functioning. Functioning well is, hey, I'm ready to take on the day. I have a positive mindset. The day doesn't look like just another list of tasks. It's something I'm looking forward to because I'm refreshed and ready to take on the day versus I know when I don't get enough sleep, okay, I have to do this, and this, and then I can go to bed. And that's really what I'm looking forward to is the next time I can crawl underneath the covers. So are these statements true or are they false about you? We really want them all to be true. We want you to be able to say, yes, I do these things, or I am these things. If they're false, this is the perfect presentation for you to show up for. Again, maybe it's not true or false to all of them. Maybe it's a mix of true and false. But again, figuring out, okay, what's best for me and how can I make that happen? That's really what we're going to talk about today. But before we do that, what exactly is sleep and why do we need it? So to figure out what is sleep, I reached out to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, gave me this nice long definition of sleep. And I highlighted two portions for us to touch on. The first one is the natural, easily reversible periodic state. And essentially, it's very normal for us to sleep. We can easily come out of sleep. So we wake, we fall asleep, we wake, we fall asleep. And it's, as it says, periodic. It happens kind of on that regular basis, but not necessarily forever. So we roll into it and we roll out of it. The second piece is the very last. Usually considered essential to the restoration and recovery of vital bodily and mental functions. What does this mean? Usually considered essential. Again, there is going to be times where you don't necessarily have to have it or you can get a little bit less, but most of the time it is essential to your vital bodily and mental functions. Again, you can push that low battery mode when you're not getting enough, but you can't function without it because eventually that phone does die. That battery is at zero. It has to shut off, and that's how we function. We can hit low battery mode enough, but if you go 72 hours without sleep at some point, the body just starts to shut down. It's like, I am falling asleep. I need that break. And it does this because it restores and recovers itself. So when you sleep, I kind of categorize these into three groups of what happens. When we sleep, the body repairs itself, removes toxins, and restores brain energy levels. Really what it does is starts to kind of take a step back and do a lot of that recovery piece that isn't happening during the day. As much as we don't think maybe we do a lot during the day, even if it's not physical, if we're reading, doing a puzzle, going on a walk, those things maybe aren't hard for us, but they are taxing on the body. It has to do a lot of work to make your legs function, to make your brain function, to have all these things work properly. And so during sleep, it really goes through that stage of filling in the gaps, making sure that the things that are not working properly are getting fixed. So we have to have sleep for that. Second piece is it processes the previous day's events and stores the information that it needs and then tosses the rest. If I asked you, what'd you have for lunch yesterday? Could you name it just like that? A lot of us probably have to think about it. We can figure it out, but we got to think about it. And that's essentially what it's doing, is it's saying, well, that's not really like super important. And so I'm just going to kind of toss it. Whereas if you asked, okay, what's your address? Even though you learned that like a long time ago, you could probably just spit it out just like that, because it's more important information than what did you eat yesterday for lunch. So those two things. The last thing is the body focuses on supporting the immune system. As we kind of talked about in the first one, it's doing a lot of those physical restorations. It's really focusing on getting your energy levels back up and then fixing the physical component of your body. It also focuses on supporting that immune system, where it's going through and doing just kind of that clean sweep. Okay, are there any viruses, bacteria, anything we really need to focus on? Because again, then that next day, you're going to go out into an environment where all these things do exist, and that battle force of your immune system needs to work so that it can combat as much as possible. Again, there are still times that we will get sick and that immune system is working really hard. But again, that sleep allows it to go through and make sure that everything is working properly. So when we encounter those things, we're able to actively fight them. Okay, so we know sleep is super critical. The things that it does, we want it to do. We have to have those things done. We need our body restored. We need our immune system to function properly. And that information, we don't necessarily need to remember everything. We need to be able to go through it and process it. So why do we skimp on this? Why do we not get enough sleep? Why is this even a conversation? And I kind of narrowed it down into 4 categories, because these are fairly common. It's not everything, but fairly common reasons why. And we're going to start up in the blue box. Constant stimulation. There was a time where everybody went to bed. That's just what you did at 9 o'clock. And there wasn't, TV shows upon TV shows to watch. There wasn't a new news feed on Facebook. There weren't things going on outside. Everyone went to bed and it was quiet at night. And it's not that way anymore. We have constant stimulation from so many sources. Mainly technology, because you can always have access to that and be on, and there's always something new. But even your book, your magazine, we just have those so much more readily available to us that we're able to be stimulated when we want to be. And maybe that's at midnight when we shouldn't be. Moving into the kind of that teal box is poor time management. We try to do a lot in a day. Americans are known for being doers. We're very much, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, this. And that's hard to do when you only have so many hours. So for example, what I see in my job is I have an individual who works full time. They go and they work out in the morning. So they start at workout class at 6 a.m., get done at 7, they change, shower, go to work at 8, have lunch, get home, work the rest of the day, get home at 5, go pick up their kids from daycare. Then they have, homework, stuff to do, make dinner. And by that point at 7:30, start getting ready for bed. And then there's all this other stuff to do. You have cleaning to do, laundry to do, getting ready for the next day. And something has to give. It's either these things don't get done or I just get a little bit less sleep. And in that moment, getting the laundry done probably looks better because it just annoys us when it sits there. I know I'm that way. Maybe you guys aren't that way. But to me, it's like, well, I'll just get this done and then I'll go to bed. And usually it leads into another thing. And before I know it, I'm like, gosh, I should have gone to bed like an hour ago. That leads us into the green square. We just don't prioritize it. It's not high on our list. We think I'll do it this weekend. I'll catch up or I'll take a nap tomorrow. It's not a big deal. I can function without it. Again, I'll push that low battery mode for tomorrow. Well, tomorrow turns into 2 days, 3 days, a week, months. Before you know it, you haven't been getting enough sleep for a long time. And that's because, again, it's low on the totem pole. We put it low on the totem pole because of the last point. I can function without it. I don't have to have it. I can get 4 hours of sleep and I'm totally fine, Sam. What are you talking about? You may feel fine for a day, for a couple of days, but we know that, hey, if you don't get enough sleep, your chances of getting sick increase significantly because your immune system doesn't have that space and time to do what it needs to do. You may also find that your memory just isn't what it was. Again, you have to have that space and time for it to do its job, for that recovery to happen. And so when we have that I can function without it mentality, it catches up with us. It really, really does. When people tell me, I want to lose weight or I want to do XYZ, I ask them, how much sleep are you getting? And they go, well, I usually get like 4 to 5 hours of sleep and it's not a big deal. And I go, if you're trying to lose weight, one of the most important things you can do is get enough sleep, because sleep helps regulate your hormones, and having your hormones in balance is going to help you lose weight. Same thing with exercise. They've done a lot of different studies on sleep and exercise. If you do weightlifting, strength training for an hour, you need another hour of sleep. I know for me personally, I need somewhere from 9 to 10. I'm super active during the day. In order for me to feel good and ready to go the next day, I need a lot, but I do a lot in a day. And so that's where, okay, I really have to prioritize this over a lot of things because I know that I need it. And I don't want to go through life just on low battery mode, just doing my critical functions. I want to do all of it and feeling good. And so what we've already talked about then, to kind of wrap all this in together, is we've talked about what is sleep, why do you need it, what exactly does it do for you, and then why we skimp on sleep. So we've kind of formed that base. And now we're going to jump into these yellow squares of the actual, how do I know if I'm getting enough? And if I'm not getting enough, how can I improve my sleep habits to get enough? All right, so we're going to start with the 2 concepts that really kind of play into our sleep as far as knowing your restful sleep habits. The first one is quality. So how well you're sleeping. This is the restful sleep. And then quantity. How long are you sleeping? Are you literally asleep for long enough? Does the body have enough time to do its job? All of those functions take time. And all of those functions happen at different stages of your sleep. Some of them we need to be in a deep sleep. Some of them can happen in a lighter sleep. But again, we need to know, okay, we're not just in light sleep all the time because some of those things aren't happening then. The next slide is kind of my way of saying, okay, which one are you? The dog on the left is the one who's showing up, ready to go, ready for the morning. And then your koala on the right is I didn't get enough sleep. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay in my bed. And which one are you? Which one do you want to be? Do you want to be the koala who's always just struggling to get through? Or that dog on the left that's perky and ready to go? If any of you have animals and you get up in the morning and they are just jazzed to go. We have too many Aussies. As soon as we're awake, they're ready. They are set and ready to go. And I'm like, why can't I be more like you? And I'm like, oh, when they got tired last night, they went to their kennels and went to bed. When I was tired, I decided that laundry was more important. Somebody has a better idea here of going to bed when you're tired and when you know that you need sleep. We're going to start with quantity of sleep though. How much do you need? This chart I'm going to show you is one that I really like because everyone is different, but age does impact the amount of sleep that you need. If you look at the bottom, it starts with newborns and then moves its way up to your senior older adults. So the recommended kind of average they see is 7 to 8 hours. 5 to 9 is kind of that appropriate range. You fall in there, you're probably still good. And then the blue is the not recommended. Now, if you look at this graph, nobody falls below 5. So 5 is the appropriate, but 1 to 4 is not recommended at all. And I know too many individuals who fall into that category of getting 3, 4, even 5 hours of sleep a night, when that's not how they function best, but they can function. And so kind of look at this and think, okay, how much do I regularly get? Is it kind of that 7 to 8? Hopefully it's in between that 5 to 9, but is it really outside of that? So that's our quantity of sleep. Quality we're going to talk about in a second, but I wanted to show you this chart. I just really liked it as a visual representation. So quality, quantity, what affects it? How do we know really if things are going well or not well, and what things can we take into consideration? So for quality sleep, there's a couple things I want to touch on. There are a lot of things that impact your sleep. We're going to cover the highlight ones. First one is medical conditions and medications. There are many different medications that will cause drowsiness, where you want to sleep, or insomnia, where you're unable to sleep. Same thing with medical conditions. And so taking that into consideration as you look at your own life, maybe that's something that is impacting my sleep. Next one is sleep environment. So light, temperature, comfort level. I don't know if any of you have ever had your AC go out during the summer and you just struggle to sleep. It's just way too hot. And that is really common. Most of us sleep better in a cooler environment than what we normally have set during the day. But sleep environment is very important. Third is nutrition. We specifically think of caffeine and alcohol. So caffeine will keep you awake. And if you drink caffeine too late in the day, you're not able to fall asleep. Alcohol is kind of on the flip side. Alcohol will make you drowsy, but you don't sleep very well. Again, there are other nutrition factors that go into it. I know some people, if they eat too close to bedtime, they're just really uncomfortable in bed. And then on the flip side, I know for me personally that if I don't eat before I go to bed, then about 4 or 5 in the morning, my stomach just starts to hurt because it's like, I'm hungry, wake up, give me something. And so I know, hey, you need to eat a really good supper before you go to bed because I'm sleeping 9 to 10 hours. It gets hungry. It hasn't had anything. Fourth, sleep partners, spouse, pets, children, anybody who's in the house space with you, in bed with you, that can either stir, have movement, cause you to either sleep better or kind of cause your sleep to just not be as good. And then finally, stress levels. I use the example of what keeps you up at night. What are you thinking about? What's constantly whizzing through your head that you just can't put to rest? So those are going to affect your quality of sleep. This isn't the length of time. This is, am I able to have a good, restful night of sleep? So what affects your quantity of sleep? As far as, can it be shorter or longer? Hours you spend in bed actually asleep. Level of activity, exertion. So the more active you are, essentially the more recovery your body needs. It needs more rest. And so we're going to need more sleep. Age, as I mentioned, the older we get, the less sleep we need. So taking that into consideration as well. Maybe you don't need 10, 11 hours like you needed when you were 7. But we do need enough. Again, functioning on 3 to 4 isn't recommended, but we do need enough time in bed so that those recovery processes can happen for us. And then finally, just simply genetics. I know when I was in college, I was like, you guys, I really got to go to bed or I'm going to feel terrible tomorrow. Because I am not even somebody who functions on like 5 to 6. I'm somebody who functions on 7 to 8, functions well, 9 to 10. That's how I'm wired. And I had friends who, they could function on that 4 to 5, but if they got 6, they were doing pretty well. That's just how they were wired. They were a lot different than I, but they also had a lot different structure to their lives as far as what they were doing in the day. Again, I was very active, whereas they maybe weren't so much. So this is what affects it. Now, how do you know if these things are affecting it? All right, starting with that quality of sleep again. Again, this is the deep, restful, how are you sleeping? Falling asleep in 30 minutes or less. We don't want to lay in bed and toss and turn, toss and turn, toss and turn. We want to go to bed, lay down, and fall asleep within 30 minutes. That's goal. Being able to fall asleep again after falling asleep initially and then waking up in the night. So maybe you went to bed about 2, 3 in the morning, you got up, you had to go to the bathroom, and then you go back to bed and you just lay there for 2 more hours. Finally, you fall asleep and then your alarm goes off what feels like a minute later, but it's 2 hours later. So we want to be able to, if we have to get up in the middle of the night, to be able to fall back asleep shortly after we lay back down. We don't want to stay awake. And then not waking up more than once per night. We don't necessarily want to be waking up 3, 4, 5 times. Awake, asleep, awake, asleep. We want to be able to fall asleep, get up once if we have to, and then go back to sleep. So that's how we know if our quality sleep is pretty good. If we're able to do these things. Quantity of sleep. How do we know if what we're getting currently is a good fit for us? So not necessary to use caffeine or naps to get you through the day. If you have to have that cup of coffee in the morning, look at your lifestyle habits. Are you getting enough sleep? Do you need the jolt in the morning? Do you need that energy because you didn't get it the night before? So we don't necessarily want to have to rely on naps or caffeine to get our energy for the day. Feeling energized and refreshed after sleeping. Again, we want to wake up positive, ready to take on the day, looking forward to things versus here's my list. Where can I fit in a nap? Where can I get my cup of coffee? We want to be looking forward to things that we have on our list that day. And then the last one is waking up to your own without an alarm. If any of you have ever had kind of that set alarm time where you consistently have to get up at the same time, I know for me, that's about 7:30-ish. And usually I wake up about 7:20, 7:25 because I go to bed at the same time. I get enough sleep. My body knows, okay, it's time to wake up without the alarm. Now, I have those friends on the other hand who have 6 alarms set because they snooze the first 4. And by the time they hit 5 or 6, they're kind of awake enough to get going, but they are not getting enough sleep and their body's saying, no, you need sleep. Do not get out of bed. You need sleep, but they have to because they kind of cut it short on the other end of going to bed. So look at this list and think, okay, is what I'm doing working? We all probably have habits when it comes to sleep, but are these habits working for you? Or are they working against you? I know for one, I think of my dad specifically, loves to watch the 10 o'clock news, but when he has to get up early, it kind of works against him. Like, can you watch like the 7 o'clock news so you can go to bed, or even the 9 o'clock news so you can go to bed at a decent time instead of the 10? Or if you work out in the morning, is that working for you, or is that working against you? Are you a night owl who just doesn't like to get up early, but yet you're forcing yourself to? Are you still getting enough sleep, even if you're doing that? Okay, so if some of these things you say, I look at this and I know my quality of sleep isn't the best, or my quantity of sleep, I'm either like, yeah, Sam, that caffeine jolt have to have. If you're that person, let's talk about how you can set yourself up for success. Ultimately, what we want is for you to get a good night of sleep so that those things are able to happen. So then your days are good days. We don't want to have a not so good night of sleep so we have a not so good day. We want both to work well so that we're able to have good nights and good days. We're going to start with the right environment. Again, everyone is so different as far as how they sleep best. That think about what you're currently doing. If it works for you, great. And if it's like, you know what, this is probably an area I could do something about, then these are these suggestions to start with. First one, we sleep best in 65 to 71 degrees. Some of you might be like, oh, Sam, that is so warm. And some of you are like, okay, that is freezing. But that is the recommended temperature. Like I mentioned earlier, we sleep better in cool temperatures versus hot temperatures. And so kind of kick it down a notch. Do you sleep better when it's a little bit cooler? Minimal light and noise. Sometimes it's really hard to do. You don't have control over this, especially if you have people near you, kids, other spouses, dogs. I know there's been times where our dogs start barking in the morning. There's just not a lot I can do about it in that moment. But we can do blackout curtains to block out a lot of the light, because light is stimulating to us. It tells us it is day, it is time to wake up. So curtains, blackout curtains specifically, are super helpful when it comes to light. And then if you're able to have some sort of white noise, think fan, they actually make white noise machines. Something along those lines can be more helpful too. But we really want minimal light, minimal noise. Why? Because those are stimulating things for us. We tune into them, is the way I'll put it. We tune into that noise. And that's something we don't necessarily want to do, because we want to be asleep. We don't want to be awake. We want to be asleep. Finally, a comfortable space. Everyone is different, but is your mattress comfortable? Pillow, blanket, are you cool enough? Are you warm enough? Again, there's kind of that both stretch, but being in a space where you feel safe and able to fall asleep. So we want to feel good in the space that we're in, lay down and fall asleep. Again, we want to fall asleep within 30 minutes. So that's your environment. Setting yourself up for success when it comes to the environment. Now let's talk about timing. The first part doesn't actually have anything to do with your sleep, but setting yourself up for success when it comes to falling asleep. And that is your routine before you go to bed. Now, there's a couple suggestions here. First one is limiting blue light. So technology, anything with a backlight on it. So your phone, an iPad, even some TVs, that blue light is stimulating to us. High intensity exercise, anything that's going to kind of get your heart rate up, again, stimulating you. And then finally, eating close to bedtime. This is different for everybody. But we want to have that bedtime routine that's essentially telling our bodies, I'm preparing to go to bed. So when you actually lay down in bed, you're able to fall asleep. I had a really good routine before COVID. I did the same thing, took a shower at the same time, was really organized. And when I laid down in bed, I was out. Then when COVID happened and schedule went whoop, out the window, so did my bedtime routine. And I struggled to fall asleep because I didn't have it anymore. I had trained my body that when I do these things in this order, it's time for bed. Well, that it all went away. I had to recreate that routine then. So routine is super important. You might already have one. Again, this can work for you. It can also work against you. So kind of think about that. How is my bedtime routine? Is it working for me? Is it working against me? Next one is timing of bedtime. We have different rhythms throughout our day and night. And are you able to go to bed at about the same time? Now, for some of us, it's a little bit easier if it's just us, or if we don't have other things that play into it. So for example, let's say that you go to, someone's football game, it's out of town, you got to drive, you don't get home until 10:30. Normally you go to bed at 10 and you didn't get home until 10:30. That's really going to throw things off. We really want to try though to go to bed at the same time every day. This includes weekends. There will always be exceptions, but we really want to be close to that. Hey, I normally go to bed around 10. We want to stick with that 10 o'clock. Why is this? Again, we have those rhythms and we also have that routine. Our body knows, okay, we usually start getting ready to go to bed around this time. And when it doesn't happen, it throws it off. So kind of sticking to it. Humans are creatures of habit. Whether it's consciously, we think about it, or unconsciously, we don't think about it. So we have to keep that in mind. Okay, so that's the right environment. That's the right timing. As we talked about earlier, there's lots of things that influence your quality of sleep and your quantity of sleep. Here are ways to set yourself up for success. This is also the time too to think about, okay, if there are things after I've tried this that still aren't working for me, I'm not sleeping through the night well, I'm not sleeping at all as far as quantity of sleep, talking to a medical professional, talking to your doctor. Okay, what's going on? Because sleep is crucial to having good nights and good days. So have that conversation if you feel like it's a worthwhile conversation for you. So what do you know now? As kind of a wrap up, you know what sleep is, you know what makes it so critical for our health, what affects our quality and quantity of sleep, what those things are, how you can improve your sleep habits, and then how you know if you're getting enough restful sleep. Okay, so we're going to do a quick activity, piece of scratch paper. You can even just think about these things. But what are 2 things you learned today? So whether that's, here's the recommended amount of sleep, here's 2 things that impact your quality of sleep, just things you didn't know. It could just be even simple, like I didn't realize a newborn needed 18 hours of sleep. Maybe you didn't know that. 2 things you're doing well related to sleep. So if, hey, I go to bed at the same time most nights, or I'm really good about shutting off the technology an hour before I go to bed. We all do things that are super helpful for our sleep. And then 2 things you'll try to improve related to your sleep. What are things that you feel like could have, a little bit of a boost to help you sleep? I know for me personally, that's going to bed at the same time. When it's nice outside, I'm very much well, let's stay until it's light out and then we'll do the inside stuff when it's dark. But when it's raining or stuff, I'm like, well, we'll just go to bed early. Well, sometimes that doesn't work out so well for my sleep schedule. So the 2-2-2 activity. So I'm going to let you write those things down. We'll just give you one more second here. But this is really to help you take what we learned today and put it into practice. I know that I'm doing these things well and I need to continue to do these things. Here are 2 things that I could improve on and I'm going to start working on. All right, so now that you have those written down, let's answer any questions. Kelly is in charge of the chats. She will read them out loud and I will answer them. But I will kick it over to Kelly.
Well, hey, wow, Sam, that was fantastic. And I tell you, I was in such a hurry to introduce you. I just got so excited. I didn't even encourage folks to use the chat feature, but they found it. I knew they would. So folks, certainly use your chat feature and ask any questions that you might have. The first one I have for you, Sam, is could you suggest some tips for getting enough sleep when traveling?
Traveling is tough, especially if we include traveling across time zones. Again, like I talked about, we function best on rhythms. And so what's 9 o'clock here might be 4 o'clock somewhere else. That's really going to throw off that rhythm. I'm just going to give you a couple of suggestions to keep in mind. One is, again, trying to stick to your schedule as much as possible. So if you know, hey, we're changing an hour, again, try and stick to we're going to bed. I know that's hard, especially when we're traveling, because there's a lot of things we want to do and see. But again, if you don't normally function with a nap, try to not have a nap, get enough sleep at night. I know for me personally, I always bring my own pillow and sometimes even my own blanket. We went somewhere and my family was like, what are you doing? You're taking the whole bed with you. I said, yes, because I know that I will sleep better with my own pillow and my own blanket. So I always pack those things. If you're somebody who functions well with blackout curtains, if you can take a sleep mask, so you kind of have that same effect as the blackout curtain. And then I would say the same thing with the white noise. If you function with white noise, I normally have a fan on at night, and I went somewhere they didn't have a fan, and I actually downloaded an app on my phone that makes white noises, and one of the options was a fan noise. So really trying to mimic what you have at home and what works for you at home. I know that maybe we get into the habit of, well, I'll just, take Advil PM and I'll sleep. That's kind of giving you some of that artificial sleep. We want to have that natural sleep where we're able to fall asleep. And some of it is recreating what works for us now in just simply a different environment. So those would be my top suggestions.
Those are good ones. Thank you. Okay, here's another. Tom says he signed in a little late. Maybe we've already addressed this. Can you speak to the role of cognitive behavioral therapy in improving sleep quality and quantity?
So I'm just going to kind of overarch this. Sleep is impacted by many different things, and mental health is one of them. So, for example, those who are anxious, the anxiety doesn't shut off when they go to bed. Maybe they're also anxious at night and they really struggle to fall asleep because those thoughts continue to whir. For those who are maybe depressed, maybe they tend to want more sleep. That helps them. When you talk about cognitive behavioral therapy, it can be helpful in both directions. But again, everyone is so different that I don't necessarily want to give a specific answer because people just react differently to something like that. But yes, they are connected. I will say that much. They are connected. And there's so many things that impact sleep. And that for surely would be one of them.
Great answer, Sam. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to take these out of order from the order in which they were asked because I think it'll be easier for you to answer that way.
Okay.
Angie is asking, can you help us recognize symptoms of sleep apnea? I told my doctor I thought I might have it, and he said I was not really a candidate for sleep apnea. I was not sure what he meant by that. And then the question just after that, if there's a way that you can just segue into that, Sam, is if you use a CPAP machine but it interrupts your sleep, are there other options?
So we'll start with the sleep apnea one. There are individuals who are predisposed to sleep apnea. Essentially, individuals who are overweight tend to be more at risk for developing sleep apnea, but anyone can have sleep apnea. My suggestion for you is that to continue that conversation with your doctor or finding a doctor who is an expert on sleep. And so I know that at least throughout Lincoln and Omaha, there are specific centers that's all that they do is sleep. And if you feel that, hey, my sleep isn't as good as it could be, maybe reaching out to them or again, reaching out to your doctor, depending on how comfortable you are, and saying, I really think something is up with my sleep. And just kind of starting to have that conversation about this is what's up. And maybe it isn't sleep apnea. There are a lot of sleep disorders, but at the end of the day, we want you to have a good night so you can have a good day. And nobody is going to know what that looks like except you. Again, so start with your doctor, continue that conversation if possible, or look into the other sleep experts across Nebraska who would be able to help you too, because again, they are the experts. They're going to be able to help you pinpoint what would be super helpful for you. When it comes to the CPAP machine, which is usually used for sleep apnea, that is designed to help you sleep. And if you're an individual who has a CPAP and it's not helping you sleep, that is the time to go back to your provider and say, this is not helping. There are lots of other options out there beyond a CPAP. But again, you're the one using it. You're the only one who's going to know if you're getting a good night's sleep or not. They know that these things can help. Similar to a medication, they don't know if it's really working well for you or not unless you tell them. So some of it is just simply having that conversation and letting them know, well, it's kind of helping, but I still just don't feel great. I know my dad, he had a CPAP and then he had heart surgery. And after that, he felt like the CPAP didn't help. And so just kind of having that conversation about this isn't helping, because as much as we enjoy our doctors and as smart as they aren't mind readers either. So just kind of having that conversation, bringing it up. And again, if you feel that your opinion and concerns aren't being heard, going to a provider who specializes in sleep, because those folks do exist too. And that's an easy, sleep doctor, Lincoln, Nebraska, sleep doctor, Omaha, Nebraska. You'll have lots of things that come up. You could just ask your provider, I really feel like I need to see somebody who specializes in this, who can help me.
Again, great answers. Thank you. Here's another one. Oh, pardon me, I lost my place. Is an adjustable bed for seniors, which is motorized, likely to interrupt sleep? Does one have to change the settings during the night in order to change the position?
So the adjustable beds there are lots of different kinds to start with. And again, it's really unique to you. What makes you feel most comfortable? For some individuals, maybe they find sleeping in a recliner is more comfortable than sleeping in a bed. And maybe they enjoy that little bit of head lift or a little bit of foot lift for them. Most sleep products, you take a mattress or a frame, do have some sort of trial. So whether that's a 100-night trial, a 50-night trial, 30 days, you can test it out. And that would be my suggestion to you, is to simply go try it. Go to a store, ask questions. What specifically are you looking for? Try it out. I mean, they're there and the floor models are available because they want you to try it. They want you to see if this is a good fit for you. I know that some individuals enjoy them and some do not. And that's a personal preference for everybody. I can say that, if you enjoy sleeping in the recliner and having that head lift, then maybe that adjustable mattress would be a better fit for you, but you're not going to know until you actually try. Again, going to the store, talking to those experts who have all the information on it and are able to share with you is going to be your best bet.
Okay, this question is not nearly as serious as some of
Okay.
these, but it's actually my question, so it's important to me. I am a huge nighttime snacker.
Okay.
In fact, for these folks that are on that have actually traveled on the journey trips with me, they're going to say it's snack or nothing. You're a nighttime binger.
Oh, yes.
So yeah. As I'm becoming more aware of the connection between sleep and weight loss, I know, first of all, I need to stop eating and then just go to bed, but I need that nighttime snack. Could you recommend something that's just a light snack that would help me signal to my brain that we've had the snack, it's time to go to bed, but isn't going to cause detriment to falling asleep, getting to sleep?
There are a couple of things that actually help falling asleep. And one of them is dairy products. They have the essentially chemical build of dairy can help you fall asleep, which is why when babies start to nurse, they tend to fall asleep. So like Greek yogurt with a little bit of granola or something on it for that little bit of sweet is helpful. I know, at least in my house, we do cheese sticks. I've even done cereal, just a little tiny bowl of cereal with a little bit of milk, enough to get by. But really, it's what's going to kind of signal you to go to bed. We don't want something super heavy or something super greasy. So I wouldn't recommend a slice of pizza. But I mean, just things like a handful of popcorn or that Greek yogurt with a little bit of sweet on it. I know even for me recently, it's been a bagel with a little bit of peanut butter, just enough to kind of satisfy. Really what we're looking for is a combination of a protein, a fat, and a carb. So with the bagel, you have the bagel, that's your carb. The peanut butter is your fat and your protein. It keeps you full. It's satisfying. And it's going to help you then essentially tell your body, okay, you have something in your stomach, you're good to go. So anything with those three is usually helpful.
All right. Thank you. Thanks so much. I don't see any other questions coming in except, will this be available? And absolutely it will. Give us a little bit of time to get it ready, and it will be available on the Journey webpage, ubt.com/journey. We also post them on the UBT YouTube channel, but we'll have all of them on the Journey webpage. And we like for you to go there anyway, because it's a great place to look to see what else we'll be bringing you. Somebody said that I didn't introduce myself. I think everybody knows me. I'm Kelly Robert. I'm the Journey Program Manager, and I would identify closest with the koala in the picture. That's totally me. Caitlin Moore, I always forget my manners. I didn't introduce Caitlin, and she is, remember Calamity Kate and Silent Orville? Caitlin is Silent Orville. She does all the stuff that keeps all of this running for me. So I so appreciate her, as well as Nikki Davison, marketing coordinator extraordinaire. And Sam, you did us the great honor of being our very first presenter in this when we brought this series back. And Sam Dolezal, she is amazing. We're so appreciative of you. And thanks to all of you who gave up part of your Tuesday afternoon to tune in. We hope you'll join us next week when our presenter is actually a good friend of Sam's, is Jen Donovan from Hy-Vee, and she'll be presenting on smarter meal prep for one or two. So I hope to see you then. Have a fantastic day. Thanks. Bye.